Hello everyone, here's another game mechanics video for 1.30 update. It's time to talk about the new estates system. The estates have been completely overhauled. Earlier, the estates were this passive, detached part of the game where you clicked on them every few years and it gave you free monarch points, and that was it. That was the extent of how much estates were used in game. With the new update, estates feel a lot more part of the game. There are more dynamic interactions, and how you interact with an estate now has a longer term after effect. In-game, estates were locked behind DLCs for a long time. I think you needed the Cossacks DLC to enable states, and only in the last couple of updates did estates become part of the base game. So I'm sure there are some people who just got used to the estate system, and now there's this new estate interface and a whole new estate system to learn. Well, I hope this little video clarifies how estates work, so let's get right into it. The new estates interface is completely different from the old one. Let's go over each section to understand what it all means. The first section, estate land, shows what percentage of the crown land is owned by each estate. The estates now own a part of the crown land instead of owning provinces, so you don't have to click hundreds of times on provinces to assign them to estates, which is great. Instead, now estates will have some percentage of the crown land. This crown land is arbitrary, and you can give away a percentage of crown land to an estate. So for France here, the clergy, nobility, and bourgeoisie estates start with these percentages of crown land control. And the nation, that is us, only controls 29% of this crown land. Now, since we don't control enough crown land ourselves, it gives us some penalties, and that can be seen in the next section. Since we own less than 30% of crown land, we are getting penalties with -10 to max absolutism, -10% national tax modifier, and +25% liberty desire from subjects' development. When the crown land control drops below 20, we get more severe modifiers with -15 max absolutism, -15% tax modifier, +50% liberty desire from subjects' development, and +0.05 monthly autonomy change. And finally, below 10% crown land control, you get -50 max absolutism, -20% national tax modifier, +150% liberty desire in subjects from development, and +0.2 monthly autonomy change. By the way, the tooltip here says you get penalties if you are below 40%, and I think that's a typo. Finally, there's also bonuses if you can get the crown land control to above 50%. Between 50 and 60%, you get +5 max absolutism and +5% national tax modifier. Between 60 and 75%, you get +10 max absolutism, +1 yearly absolutism, and +10% national tax modifier. Going above 75 also gives -0.01 monthly autonomy change bonus. And at 100% crown control, you get +15 max absolutism, +1 yearly absolutism, +20% tax modifier, and -0.05 monthly autonomy change. The important thing to note here is that the absolutism bonuses cap out at 75% crown land control. And in the new patch, getting the crown land percentage high is not that easy, especially since you can trade it for some pretty good bonuses from the estates. You can also increase the crown land percentage by getting more development, either by deving up provinces or conquering new provinces. Then there are 3 crown land interactions you can do. First is sale of titles, where you can sell 10% of crown land for some money and estate loyalty. This 10% crown land is distributed among estates depending on their current crown land control. You can do this interaction every 5 years. The other one is seize land, where you can take back 5% of crown land from the estates. This will lower the estate's loyalty by 20. You can use this interaction every 5 years as well, but you will have to keep an eye on the estate's loyalty. The third interaction is summon the diet. With this interaction, every estate gets 5 influence for 20 years and +5 loyalty. And this will also trigger an agenda which will pop up an event. This event is sort of a mini mission where each estate will give you an agenda, and if you complete their agenda in 20 years, you will get some bonuses. These agendas will vary based on which country you are playing and on different estates. So for France here, the clergy is asking that the Pope has 100 opinion of France. And if we complete it, clergy gets +10 loyalty, and we get +1 yearly papal influence for 15 years. Similarly, nobility is asking for at least 30 prestige, which will give +10 nobility loyalty and 50 admin points. And bourgeoisie wants us to have 25% or more trade power in Valencia trade node, which will give us +10 loyalty, and level 2 trade efficiency advisor, who will be 50% cheaper. And if we fail to complete the agenda in 20 years, we'll get -5 loyalty. But if you complete the agenda, the timer resets to 5 years like the other 2 interactions. Now, if you look at the clergy estate here, they have 50% loyalty, 22% influence, and they are giving a bonus of +10% national tax modifier. As far as I can tell, the bonuses and penalties from each estate are the same as the previous patch. One important thing that has changed is how loyalty ticks. If you remember in the previous patch, loyalty would always slowly take towards 50 for all estates. This has changed now and there's something called equilibrium. The loyalty will always tick towards whatever the equilibrium is at. In this instance, the equilibrium is at 38.4 and it's affected by these modifiers. So we'll have to think about the equilibrium value as well, as we definitely don't want the equilibrium to go below 30 and make the estates disloyal. It seems the equilibrium depends on crown land ownership percentage for each estate as well as prestige. In addition, granting privileges might also change the equilibrium. Also, clergy equilibrium is affected by religious unity, nobility is affected by legitimacy and army tradition, and burghers are affected by navy tradition and mercantilism. So we do have a few more modifiers that affect estate loyalty, which is good in my opinion. It makes the estate more part of the game. Next, let's look at new estate privileges. The estate interactions are now called estate privileges. Each estate has a unique set of privileges, and some nations start with a privilege or two already active. Like in the case of France here, nobilities have the French strong duchies privilege active at the start of game. The main difference between estate interaction in the past and the new estate privileges is that once you give a privilege to an estate, the privilege will be active until you revoke it, and revoking a privilege costs 20 loyalty, and the estate needs to have more loyalty than influence. Here you can grant a number of privileges to clergy. Clergy land rights will give 5 loyalty and influence to clergy, and for the cost of 5% crown land and -5 max absolutism, we get 100 governing cap. By the way, if you don't know about governing cap, check out my last video, it's a new game mechanic as well. The second privilege is the papal emissary, which also gives 5 loyalty and influence to clergy. It doesn't cost us any crown land, but the -5 absolutism modifier still applies. We get +1 yearly papal influence, plus 5% to all curia power cost, and we lose 5 papal influence as well. You also need 20 papal influence to grant this privilege. Religious state privilege gives -5 loyalty to clergy and costs us 10% crown land and -5% max absolutism, and this gives +1 monthly admin points, which is super powerful actually, and this is the one which you would want to enact as soon as possible. Clerical Advisory Council gives 5 loyalty and 10 influence to clergy, and for -5 max absolutism, you get -25% admin advisor cost and plus 10% stab cost modifier. Clerical Ministers gives 10 influence to clergy and -5 max absolutism for -20% missionary maintenance cost. Oversight by the clergy gives 10 loyalty and influence to the state for -10 max absolutism. This one doesn't have any more modifiers and it's just here to increase state loyalty and influence. These are all the privileges that come with 1.30 update. Now, if you have the Emperor DLC as well, you will have access to some additional privileges. Expansionist Zealotry gives plus 5% morale of armies when fighting heathens and heretics and -5 morale when at peace. Then there are monopoly privileges where you can get some money upfront for a loss of production income from a trade good. You also get +1 mercantilism. And you cannot revoke this privilege for 10 years. So basically, you get 8 years worth of production income upfront for a cost of 10 years worth of production income. It might be worth clicking this privilege if you are in need of some cash for a war, and maybe even taking the money up front and building a production building might pay itself back to justify it. However, keep in mind the absolutism hit, as we will have to deal with it when Age of Absolutism starts. Similarly, nobility also has the government cap privilege and the monthly military power privilege. It has some additional ones that give bonuses to army tradition decay and general cost, as well as manpower modifier, depending on how much crown land they control. Keeping in mind how precious manpower is going to be in the new patch, this privilege could be a must-have. Then there's the French strong duchy privilege, which gives +3 diplo relations and -10 liberty desire in subjects in the same continent. There's also privileges where estates can pursue agenda without us interacting with them, and then there are more monopoly privileges. Bourgeoisie estate similarly has different privileges, and I won't go into each privilege for every estate here because there are a lot of unique estates, and I think it deserves a separate video where we can evaluate all privileges for all estates and which one are worth taking. This short video is more about how new estate system works. In the previous patch, the strategy typically was to do estate interactions and take 150 monarch points from them whenever possible. That approach obviously doesn't apply anymore, so we will have to manage crown land and keep an eye on the modifiers there. The low crown land penalties for absolutism doesn't matter at all until Age of Absolutism begins. The national tax modifier hit is not great, but it's not terrible either, and the liberty desire shouldn't be a problem at the start. So I think you can safely ignore the penalties for a little while. And we'll take an example with Castile here on what initial clicks we can do to exploit the estate modifiers. So Castile starts with crown land control just shy of 30%, as do most other nations. I think every nation is supposed to start at 30%, but there's a rounding error there. So we already have some penalties. Since you usually want to tech military first before anything else, we will take the +1 monthly military power from nobility. That puts our crown land control at below 20%, which is not good, as now we also have monthly autonomy change penalty. So we are going to seize land next to get the crown land back about 20%. Or you can also dev up a province, as one dev gives 0.2% crown land back. You can obviously choose some other monarch points that you might want. For example, if you're playing as Portugal, you might want to take admin points instead if you want to rush colonial ideas. Next, we will summon the diet and take an agenda. You will get a random agenda, and this is RNG dependent. Just take whichever is possible to complete. As this gives us free modifiers we can take every 5 years. You should always do the agenda interaction. This early game strat was just a general guide. We'll have to think more depending on which nations we choose and what early game plan is. Then there are also all the different estates and all the different privileges that come with them. One thing I found interesting is how Dhimmi estate works now. If you don't know, Dhimmis in previous patch are an estate available to Muslim nations. You can only give non-Muslim provinces to them, which gives the province a -100% missionary strength province modifier. And if the Dhimmis are loyal, they give some really nice bonuses in tech cost and tolerance of heathens. In the new patch, I was wondering how this would work since you don't assign individual provinces to estates. Well, let's take a look at Ottomans. Ottomans start with a Dhimmi privilege already active. It's the guaranteed Dhimmi autonomy, which affects all non-Muslim provinces under Ottomans' control. And we look at one of the non-Muslim provinces, and the modifier gives -100% missionary strength and -100% religious unity contribution. This is a significant change. Earlier, we could pick and choose which provinces we could give to Dhimmi, get their bonuses, but still convert other provinces. Now you cannot do that if you have the Dhimmi privilege active, as it affects every non-Muslim province in your control. Yes, you don't get the religious unity penalty from these provinces, which is really nice. You will still get unrest if you don't have enough tolerance though. And if you're role-playing a one-faith nation, it'll be a lot harder to use Dhimmis. Earlier, you could use them in a limited way, but now I think it's going to be even harder. On the other hand, now you don't need to get more non-Muslim provinces to get the full Dhimmi bonuses. Now you can just grant the promote Dhimmi nobles privilege and then complete the Dhimmi agenda, and you will already start getting bonuses to tech and tolerance of heathens. Also now the Dhimmi loyalty equilibrium is at 75%, so the loyalty will tick up more, and we can also give them more influence to get even better bonuses. I also found that getting Dhimmi bonuses doesn't require you to have heathen provinces at all. For example, with Morocco here, they don't have any non-Muslim provinces, and so the Dhimmi privilege for guaranteed Dhimmi autonomy is missing. But you can still give them the other two privileges and complete their agenda to get that sweet tech discount. This might be an oversight though, and I think it might get patched out soon. And that is all I have for the estates video today. I hope this little guide helps, and let me know in comments if you have found some more estate secrets, because some of these estates might need some more balancing. You are watching a Radio Res guide. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you all in the next one.